From The Hunger Games to The Walking Dead, or 1984 to The Road, what is it about dystopian worlds and stories and novels, or post-apocalyptic for that matter, that draws us in and holds our attention and just captivates us so much? In other words, why is the end of the world so damn awesome? Now, this video in particular is going to be about dystopian and post-apocalyptic stories and what draws us in and what captivates us and what makes them so special or so unique among other storytelling. But I would say essentially fiction. All of fiction is doing the same thing, and it is using made-up stories, plots, events, characters, whatever, to tell a story, to try and convey a deeper truth about reality, life, humanity, the human experience, etc. And it's using fiction in order to convey and tell the story of a deeper truth. With that being said, all genres, science fiction, fantasy, etc., can portray any emotion that they choose when they want to. But I would argue some genres do a better job, or if not do a better job, we just typically associate with that particular genre, and really we kind of go to for a certain experience. And in today's video, we're really going to focus on dystopian. Now, from a writing perspective, they're cautionary tales, and we're going to take an aspect of humanity or society or the world at large, and we're going to shine a light on it, and we're going to expose an ugly, dark, deep underbelly of it, and we're going to attempt to show and illustrate what would happen if we continued down this road and the worst happened. Or if humanity were left to go unchecked in a specific direction, where that could lead us. Typically in an attempt to inspire change, or at the very least, raise awareness of something that the author or the creator really deems important and wants people to really think about. Speaking of thinking about, sometimes it's merely just a thought experiment. But I would argue more often than not, they're trying to inspire change or raise awareness, essentially pushing back on regulations, ideologies, or even governments at times. But what I'm more interested in is, why do we love these stories so much? What is it in us that connects with these particular stories so much? Or at least, why do I? Because I eat this shit up. This is one of my favorite genres of all time. I really deeply connect with the end of the world. And I think it comes down to a couple of different things. First and foremost, I think we as a people, as a society, really need an outlet for our depression and our deep-seated dissatisfaction with our own existence and our own lives. We don't always know just how good we truly have it, just how cushy our lives really are. This is why we have the saying, first world problems. Like, you realize that something really bad happened in your life, and then you kind of have to realize this is a real first world problem. We live in an age of luxury and excess and all this stuff. Anything you want is pretty much at the tip of your fingers, even if you live relatively poor. I'm like lower middle class in the United States of America, and I have more than I could possibly need. And just to even go further than that, just to be even upper middle class or like wealthy, is just wildly insane that we are as dissatisfied and depressed, and how legitimately unhappy we can be in our lives with, when you really get down to it and think about it, pretty much no reason. And then consuming a story like a dystopian or a post-apocalyptic can not only give us a perspective on our own lives and our own existence, once you see people really going through it, really having a genuinely bad experience, you can reflect on your own life and you go, well, I guess maybe being a little late on the water bill last month wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me, and maybe I should just suck it up and move on with my life. Maybe it just might make you put your life and your problems into perspective a little bit more. it also draws correlation between what's happening in the book and what's happening maybe in your own life, your own feelings, thoughts, and emotions. And it's like an exaggerated form of what you might feel like in your own body, and then you can express it, or it feels like an outlet for your own emotions that you're struggling with on a day-to-day basis. And it's using a hyper-exaggerated story in order to do that. And then moving on from there, I would argue that dystopian and post-apocalyptic fiction is the shining star out of all genres in portraying the human spirit. Even more than fantasy, where you're off slaying dragons, or science fiction, where you're conquering the stars and taking humanity to brave new worlds and dimensions. There's something about the post-apocalyptic, there's something about the end of the world, where we are crushed, we've suffered the devastating, there's nothing left, there's no society, or there's a broken society, or a totalitarian society, and humanity is left in ruin or ashes, but still people find a way to overcome. The human spirit endures. The father goes down the road with his son, and he finds a way to collect enough cans to keep them alive, because there's nothing else to do other than curl up and die, and he can't bear the thought of giving up on his son. So you just keep trudging through. And there's something, at least for me, about that endurance, about that thriving of the human spirit, of the human experience, of humanity over something far worse, something that it shouldn't be able to overcome, yet somehow we always do. And even if we don't, even if it's a sad story, even if the story ends with it not being happy, with us not overcoming, the story was still about us striving for it, us never stopping, us never giving up on that dream, on that thing, that intangible idea of the spirit will endure. We will not cave under such circumstances. And then lastly, I would say that I think the stories are one of the purest representations of the idea of hope. Hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Hope that humanity endures. Hope that we will overcome whatever evil or atrocity has beset us in that particular story. And I would argue that at the end of the day, they almost always land on the idea of hope. Even if, say you have a story, have it written out, have the whole thing plotted start to end, and it ends in devastation, that big, sad, dramatic, sad story, the bad, tragic ending that I was talking about. If you were the writer or the author or the creator of this story, and you laid it out all the way to the end scene where the big, tragic thing is going to come down, so long as, say this is a movie, you cut to black before that final scene happens, or you're the writer and you just end the book the chapter before, we as a human species will almost always land on the side of hope. We will want to see that Deus Ex Machina come in. We want to see that somehow we miraculously overcome. It is why so many movies just cheesily land on the happy ending instead of landing on the elevator door closing, like Blade Runner. That is the better ending. We will, by extension, go to hope, but at the same time, it leaves it open-ended, and we don't really want to know, because that gives us also the room to maybe then think about the bad side of it, maybe think about the negative ramifications. What if it doesn't go so well? What if that happy ending doesn't come? But either way, I know I've gone all over the place, and I've probably gone off the rails here with this, but I think that they are such a genuinely strong and solid example of hope in a story. If we, humanity, can overcome the dystopia and the post-apocalyptic world in our fictional experiences, we can overcome anything. And that leaves us, as the reader, with hope. And I think that's where I want to end this particular video. Also, if you could go down in the comment section below and let me know if you maybe want to see more of these. Maybe talk about why fantasy, or why science fiction, why horror for that matter. As always, everybody, the link for my Patreon's in the description below. The link for my Discord's in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.